Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Dirt podcast. My name is Hunter Slifka, project coordinator, and Neil Schaefer, project coordinator for Silver Creek. We've been cracking away talking about a lot of different practices and things we do at the office here, but sometimes it just kind of boils down to the why and the how we can get as much done as we can. I know when we go to a lot of meetings, we have other peers and other coworkers are always asking, "What's the secret? What do you guys do up there that sets you guys apart, or how do you get all this stuff done?" Well, it's kind of a long answer. There's a lot of different things that go into it, but I guess one kind of component of it that we wanted to kind of talk about today was the community involvement and being present in your community, and showing that you are committed to helping out that other organizations or different parts of your community, and not just I show up to work at 8 o'clock, I do my work, I leave at 4:30, and you never see me again. Because I mean, honestly, a lot of our landowners, a lot of our operators that we work with, we're on other boards with. We see them out eating dinner at different places. I mean, different things like that that go a long ways and start to create those conversations. So that's where we kind of wanted to get started today, and we're both on a lot of different boards or organizations or do a lot of different things. And so I guess Neil, I'll let you kind of take off and just kind of maybe talk about some of the most important ones, and then we can kind of keep on going through and list off all the boards you're a part of, because there's not just one or two, is there?
No, not really. And I think I've told you that right from the get go. Is it's not an 8 to 4:30 job. I mean, if that's what you want, I think there's applications at Quick Start. You need to be part of your community. You need to be visible so that people see you, and not just give them a cold call because hey, we want you to build a waterway. Hey, we want you to plant cover crops. They need to see you as a part of the community. And as far as like other organizations, they're looking for volunteers. I mean, they're just bending over backwards for to get people to involve, especially younger people. I've recruited for a lot of the different committees and boards that I'm on, and it's just like kind of recruiting people to come work here or internships and things like that. You want those people involved. So I got, and it's not easy getting on these. I mean, it's easy getting on the boards, but sometimes thinking that you should be on a board or why it's important. I remember back when I was first asked to join the Farm Bureau board. That was back in 1990, and there was two farmers from the northern part of the county, John Kruger and Bill Getch, and they honestly stopped by the farm three different times. And I was busy farming, milking cows with my parents, and we had a big herd of sheep and different things like that. So I wasn't really looking to fill my free time with anything other than going out on the weekends and going to movies and stuff. But they said how important it was for the organization to have somebody involved. And I thought, well, all right. So I reluctantly got on the board, made my first mistake. I never missed a meeting that first year. So instantly I got to become an officer. I think I was secretary after the first year as a director.
So usually it's the opposite. If you miss a meeting, then all
Yeah,
of a sudden you get elected as a
eh,
higher hierarchy position.
that's always a joke that we say for all those that show up. But anyway, what it did was for our county. I mean, there was representatives from every township on the board, and it really got me to where I got to know people. And then we worked membership, and you go door to door, kind of doing that, which honestly was kind of prepping me for doing work to encourage people to do cover crops and stuff. Because honestly, what we're doing is a marketing. We're marketing a product and an idea, and that's kind of what my first involvement with Farm Bureau was. And with that, the sky's the limit on anything. You make of it what you will, and you do the bare minimum, or you can really use it to your advantage and really contribute. So, I got a lot of accolades with Farm Bureau and did a lot. Served on some state boards, even some regional boards, and got to go on some national trips and some international trips. So, volunteership on a lot of these communities can really lead a long way, and it can eventually lead to a trip to Spain or the Netherlands or Germany and things like that. So, So that was my first board that I was involved with. So what about you? What was your
Yeah.
first
I
entrance?
guess since you're on the Farm Bureau kick, I just wanted to put a quick comment. I also served a little bit on the Farm Bureau board with Neil. He kind of recruited me. And Farm Bureau does do a very good job of putting you out in front of your peers, especially obviously we're working with farmers and Farm Bureau. Obviously, it goes hand in hand, but when you're out working membership and stuff like that, you're doing exactly what we do here at the office. Just like you said, you're out there talking to other farmers, trying to sell a product, which is what we're doing. If we're trying to do cover crops or stream bank or CRP, whatever it is, that's the product we're trying to deliver. But if you just walked up to a farmer and said, "Hey, here you go. Here's CRP. Figure it out yourself," are they gonna do it? Probably not.
Hmm.
But if you went out there and you tried to deliver it, give that salesman speech or elevator speech, whatever it may be, now they're going to be more inclined to actually want to do it. And Farm Bureau really gave you the training and gave me a lot of that training. As far as like the lobbying part of it, obviously when they're going to send you down to the Capitol or send you out to DC, they have their trained professionals who are training you on what to talk about, how to deliver it, the different recipes to success that way. And so Farm Bureau does invest a lot of time and effort in that sort of range. Um, so, anyways, yeah, I'm pretty excited to talk about the next organization, and that's the fire department. You said that you had a couple gentlemen that came up and asked you to be on the board, not once, not twice, but three times. And sometimes that's what it takes to get you out there. And obviously, they knew who they wanted to get when they were coming multiple times, and so that kind of same thing happened to me with the fire department. Our chief Neil Staplecamp came over a few different times while I was mowing lawn and just said, "Hey, would you ever be interested?" And I said, "Well, I had just moved back after college and stuff." And I was like, "Well, I don't really know. I've never really thought about it. Don't really think I have much time." And then he came back the next year and asked again. And I was like, I don't know. At the time, it was soon to be fiance was moving back, and I was like, well, I don't know. I think I got to pass again. I don't think it's going to work out. I'm just really too busy. And then finally, the third time he came and asked, said, all right, I'll give it a try. We had a pretty good slug of other recruits that were coming on board, like Chaz Malik, Hover, Brad McKenna, all those kind of guys, Marsha Rogney. And so it was a really good group of guys to come all together. It's not like I was just doing it by myself. And obviously, since then, absolutely loved it. Went through all the training, all the testing, all that kind of stuff. And since been on for almost going on 5 years almost now. And so it's time flies when you're having fun, but the different things that you get to be a part of there even correlates to our job. I mean, like the prairie burns and stuff. We kind of took that aspect on. Obviously, being able to make a lot of really good maps. A lot of times when the landowners would drop a map off for a prairie burn, it was their track map and a bunch of markers scribbled all over it. And you couldn't read nothing. And so, kind of took that on upon myself to help try making some nice maps so we know where we're going. There's roads on there, landowners' names, phone numbers, that sort of thing. So, it's been a great organization, and obviously the fire department does a lot of great things for this community. And just being out there present goes a long ways. And I'll never forget probably would have been 2 or 3 years ago. It was the morning of our pancake supper actually, and we had a fire call out there, and it was a grain bin fire, and so we actually had to shovel out all the corn out of this grain bin. And being the new guys, so the new guys who haven't completed their full year of service yet, you're basically on Overwatch, you could say. And so we have our yellow helmets so they know who we are and stuff like that, and call us newbies or whatever they want to say, or their hazing per se part of it. And so we were the lucky winners who got to get in that grain bin and start shoveling out all this corn with packs on, gear on, all that kind of stuff. Well, that was by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, was on an air pack for 2-3 hours shoveling corn out, and hotter than heck, your feet are burning up and whatnot. And so that night we had wrestling practice, and coaching the junior high at the time, and I was just dead beat. I couldn't even hardly move, and I was basically telling everyone, "Oh yeah, this is what we had to do today, blah blah blah. Sorry if I'm not out running around like I normally am, or wrestling with the guys and stuff like that." And when we had the pancake supper that night, I had a couple of the athletes and their parents come, and they just thought that was the coolest thing ever. That I was a fireman and doing that kind of stuff, and I had a call right before practice and all that kind of stuff. And so, being present in your community and giving back that way, that's probably one of my most fun organizations or things to do is be in the fire department that way. So.
Well, and we've always looked to see how is our involvement on these different committees and boards. How does that impact us at work? How does that help us do our job here? Big part of it is the leadership training that you get. I know Farm Bureau is big on that. There's different, obviously the fire department's huge on leadership. It gets you out there and that ability to communicate with your community, which my next group that I'm going to talk about that really helped me was, it's kind of a subcategory of Farm Bureau, but it was called the Speaker Corps. Aaron Putzi was my advisor on that, and I think I was on that for about 4 years. And they teach, I mean, that's like communication skills on roids. I mean, we did everything, which kind of reminded me of a leadership watershed academy where we went to, where they teach you how to be interviewed on a radio, obviously before a camera. But when I started that Speaker Corps, and you get kind of get volunteered for it, they kind of recruited me. But I had a very difficult time getting up in front of someone and speaking, let alone speaking for 10, 20, for an hour or something in front of someone. So that and what Aaron did with me on that was tremendous, and it taught you not only speaking skills but writing skills. So how to write a letter to the editor, how to write a newspaper article, besides being interviewed on radio and television. So after 4 years of that practice, I remember giving my first speech or presentation. It was at Kiwanis in Osage, and I had everything written down what I was going to say. I mean, word for word. And I think I would have gotten an award for speed reading. I think I read the whole speech without taking a breath. And I was so nervous. And so then I'm like, well, this kind of sucked. I'm not going to do it this way. So then the next time I used postcards, and I was like, I did that. And I was like, yeah, I kind of did that. Well, now it's pretty much everything's extemporaneous. I just kind of get up. You got something in your head what you want to relay. And realize, I think the main thing with like even public speaking or giving a presentation is there's people in the audience. They're there because they want to learn something, and you've got something to share with them. So once you get beyond that, to know that you're not in front of a firing squad. I mean, they're there to listen to you. And one of the coolest presentations I think I've ever given is we were at a water conference a few years ago, and I was really nervous about it. I was like, it's most of those are college professors giving these presentations. You got Matt Helmers and some of these Tom Eisenhart and stuff, and here's Neil Schaefer. We're going to give a presentation on my watershed project and what we've been doing is successful and how we're doing it. And so I'm like kind of pacing outside in front there. And I'm always worried about the electronics. For some reason, I just got this phobia that my PowerPoint's not going to work, which 9 out of 10 times it doesn't go off without a hitch. But anyway, so I get up there and I'm kind of fumbling up front and kind of thinking how this is going to go. And then I look up and the whole room is just like packed like sardines. They're like along the walls, along the back, standing room only. Probably the biggest turnout for any presentation that day. And I just took a deep breath and I was like, wait a minute. I mean, wow, that's pretty cool. They're here because I got something to share with them. So I better step up to the plate and deliver. So hopefully I did a good job that day. But so that was probably one of my highlights. The other one too, I'm remiss if I didn't mention, our work with the Upper Iowa University has been tremendous the past few years. We had a lot of recruits there for interns and employees, and they've got an outstanding conservation course there. And while Heiner was attending there, one of his courses, they were inviting people in the community that had roles in conservation, whether it was county conservation or soil and water or NRCS and different things like that. So I got to speak there. And so, obviously I was talking about all the stuff that Hunter and I were doing here in Cresco during the summers and stuff. And one guy came up afterwards and never met him before. It's this redheaded kid comes up and starts asking me some questions, and he's like, would it be okay if I came and ate lunch with you? Because Hunter had arranged with his advisor that we were going to eat down in the cafeteria. I said, heck yeah, go for it. And so he came, and here was Sam Franzen, and he ended up being an intern in Mahaska County, And then he came when there was an opening in Decorah for a project coordinator. He applied for that and got that, and we become good friends. Then we eventually recruited him to come here and work in Cresco, and now he's out in the big old state of Washington, out in the Northwest, doing bigger and better things as a soil count for NRCS out there. But it's amazing just those involvements, and one thing leads to another, and sometimes people say, well, is this really worth my time or something? You don't realize the impact you have on someone until, years down the road and you're like, wow, that you kind of planted a grain of sand or a seed there, and it sprouted, and, you never know who you're going to inspire to do things. And so that's a really good thing. So the communication skill thing, I think is huge. And Speaker Corps and Aaron Putsey was a big part of that. I see him once in a while on Facebook, and he's gone on from Farm Bureau to do other commodity organizations and stuff, and he had a Facebook post about how he was doing one of these leadership things, and I'm like, kind of did a nice little comment in there, and he's like, hey, that's pretty cool. I remember those days back in the 90s when we were doing Speaker Corps.
Kind of along those same lines, when you were talking about that, a couple different organizations or groups that I had been a part of these last couple years popped into mind. The one was they're both Iowa State led organization or groups or whatever you want to call it, learning groups. The one was Community Leaders that Iowa State Extension put on. It actually took a group of young individuals within Howard County and put us all together from different job facets, whatever it may be. And we went around to each different community and had a meeting. So I want to say there's maybe 6 or 8 meetings that we had within a year period of time, and basically talked about all the things that either we do well or we struggle with in Howard County. And obviously the housing was a big one, the job market, pay, that sort of thing. All those things kind of came up and were talked about. And then at the very end, we were trying to draw some conclusions, or we're trying to find a way to market Howard County and how to bring people in. But it was a really good opportunity to sit down. I think I was maybe the youngest one there, so I was kind of a little bit scary right away seeing all these. They're still younger folks, but older than I was, and guys that you kind of look up to as professionals and stuff like that. Being able to work with and try to come up with some ideas and conclusions as to how we can keep propelling Howard County and make it a better place. And then another one kind of off the side of it, which I just finished up, was that Land Stewardship Leadership Academy. And that was really, really cool because there's a group of about 30 of us from the state of Iowa, project coordinators, NRCS employees, private sector, and it was kind of a 3-phase deal where we would do, we had a group of farmers that would come on Zoom and would talk about what they do, their good, bad experiences, what they expect out of us as professionals. We would learn from each other as far as putting like reflection ideas together. And then we also had some in-person meetings where we were able to get face-to-face and learn some different things, be able to talk back and forth, bounce our ideas back off each other. And it was a really good experience. I mean, we went through a lot of meetings, and it was a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of homework that we had to do and stuff like that. But we basically learned from the beginning of agriculture as far as why we started farming, all the way to what we farm, how we do it, how it's evolved, the different products that we produce, to marketing it, to conservation, water quality. I mean, the whole aspect from beginning to end. And it could have easily been a full-on year college course. I mean, it wasn't just a brief little soil health cover crop training here and there. I mean, it hit everything. And it was really, really impressive, I thought, because, I mean, everyone who was in this cohort, we called it, had some sort of expertise. So like myself, I guess I would say I'm a soil and water quality guru, you could say. But I didn't quite have 100% grasp on the whole marketing and the whole crop production part, maybe. Some of it, enough to be dangerous or enough to keep that conversation moving with the farmer, but you don't always know the nitty-gritty details. And so Iowa State University and the Iowa State Extension has definitely put together some really great groups and some different organizations, both back in your own community, home county, and also statewide, that have been able to put these groups together and really being able to propel you and give you some more information that you need to be a trained professional or an excelled professional.
Obviously the leadership stuff is going to come back and help us a lot. But there's many ways you can get involved in your community, and it doesn't have to be that was pretty intense. I watched Hunter, had a lot of Zoom meetings. He had to read some books and different things like that. But like I said, it was like a college course crashed into a. I'm not sure how often you met, but it was
Basically once a week.
once a
pretty
week.
much. I
Wow,
mean,
that's pretty intense.
you either had a farmer led meeting once a week, or you had your Zoom reflection deal that you had to do once a week. So basically,
Mhm.
every week you had some sort of engagement or homework, you could say. So
Yep.
it was quite a bit.
So there's I don't know. Sometimes they talk about high input, low expectations, or you kind of put them on a scale. But I know he put a lot of effort into it, but he got a lot out of it too. But you don't have to have some involvement where you're involved every week. One of the things I've been doing for a very long time, and that's an election precinct official. I started my first election that I worked at was the primary in 1986, and so through your county auditor's office, they're always looking for volunteers, and you get paid, so it's volunteered to do it, but you're paid while you're there. But so you've got all your elections, so they need workers to man the poll place. So when I started, every township in the county had their own election spot. We met in a little one-room schoolhouse just down the road from our farm, and it was a lot of fun. There was 5 individuals on there, and unfortunately, the other 4 people that I served with have all passed away now. But they had served on the board for like 40 or 50 years, and here now I've served on this board for 36 years. I think it's over 50 elections I've been an official at. But what's nice about it is the county auditors are always looking for someone to help volunteer because a lot of their workers are getting older or pass on, different things like that, or moving away. And it's not that big of a commitment. It's every other year you have a primary and a general election, and then sometimes you got school board elections or city elections, special bond issues like school buildings and stuff like that. But what a great way to meet people in your community. Sometimes I'm not even sure where all these people live because you see them only on election day. But I know that helped me considerably. And then I actually helped like over in Elma and in Lime Springs. Then you start meeting a whole lot of other people. They get to meet you and see who you are. That's kind of like with the Farm Bureau, where we ended up in the spokesman, which is we might have to do a whole story on how we do our I&E and stuff too. But anyway, so there's probably more people that know Hunter and I than we know. So this is another way. But what a great way to meet all the people in your community. And you're doing a great public service too. I know county auditors are looking for, I'm always like, during the day, every once in a while, someone will say, oh, I could do that. So I would jot their name off and hand it off to Julie Chapman. But so I've done that for 36 years. But what a great way to start meeting people in your community. And it's not a huge time commitment other than it's a very long day on election day. But it's just a great, simple way. You might not even think of it. You may not only think of it when you go to vote. It's like, oh, I wonder how they get to be that. And it's like, honestly, it's volunteer. I kind of got recruited because another board that I served on was I was township clerk. So especially these people who got watersheds in the rural area, there's all different levels of government organization, and one of the one, I shouldn't say lowest, one of the most grassroots organization is your township trustees and township clerk. So we had an individual that was leaving, and I needed to replace them. So I think for probably 8 years I was a township clerk. So we met once a year, and we met to levy taxes for the fire department. So we'd always one meeting. Well, I guess it was 2 meetings here. One meeting here, we'd go to the fire department, meet with all the firemen to kind of see what their needs were and different things like that, and then we would levy taxes for that. It's a tax levying organization.
So now that there used to be a rural fire department and the city fire department. We've now since got rid of that. Just one fire department. You guys still do this? You still do?
Yeah.
Even though there's not
Yep.
a rural technically.
Nope, because it's all based on those different townships. Because like our township goes to, well, I don't know if it's the whole township. I think it might be split. it's split. So the north half goes to Lime Springs Fire Department, the south and east part goes to Cresco. But yeah, so that's our goal, is to kind of see what you guys do. And I think it was usually just the officers of the fire department. Vince Hornberger was the chief at the time when I was served on this. This is way back in this would have been like the late 90s up until 2000. Because what's crazy about it is when I came to work here, there wasn't a real big, I don't think it was written in law for district employees, but there's something called the Hatch Act, which government employees have to be careful about doing certain things that are political. But district employees were kind of exempt from that. But just to not have the appearance of any conflict, and at the time, township clerks and trustees were either a D or an R. You're either the Democrat or Republican, which I see no reason why they had to. Well, obviously, about 3 years later, they did away with that. So I had already resigned my position on that when I came on board as a district employee. So I wouldn't have had to done that, which I think is ironic because the guy that took my place 20 years ago is ready to retire, and he's like, "Hey, you ready to have your job back?" So, but once again, it's another aspect of learning about your community. And I serve on another board that actually met last night, and what I said was, when you're on some of these boards and stuff, you get to see the inner workings of what different organizations do and how they are funded and what their goals and missions are. And a lot of times, obviously with our watershed projects, we have goals and missions, and just to watch how they do. And I've picked up a lot of ideas from some of these boards, especially with grant writing skills and different things like that, that it's like, wow. And then they, in turn, pay more attention to what we're doing. So we'll be having our meetings, and afterwards they're like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I've got this farm that's got a what." That happened last night. We're going to have to talk about that. One of the people that were on the board there, like, come outside, "Hey, I got some other business I want to talk to you about." So there's one way of getting contact, but you gain a understanding and respect for all these different organizations and groups and elected officials and different things that you don't really have just by walking down the sidewalk and minding your own business and going home after work. Because I would had no idea how a lot of this stuff, that's like Farm Bureau. I knew we got a spokesman when I was young, and I was like, if we needed hay, you'd look in the spokesman on ads. But I had no idea that all the different things that they do and their involvement and things. So that's another big part of being involved.
Yeah, and you said it when you were talking about it earlier, when you're down in Elma and just having your name out there, being public, or getting that recognition here and there. And I know a lot of times people don't like having that recognition. I know, like, we like putting our nose down to the grindstone and working away, but sometimes it is beneficial just to have your name out there, have your phone number out there, so people can say, "Hey, I need to do this or this. Who should I call?" Well, we're getting a pretty good persona where people understand or know who we are or know where we're at and how to get a hold of us. And so it gives them that avenue, or that trust factor, where they're able to then, "Hey, I know who Neil is. I can give him a call." Or if you're not being known, you're not out there, you're not helping doing this or that, they might not be confident enough to give the NRCS office or FSA office a call and say, "Hey, I need to do this." When they know someone, or they have some sort of personal connection, whether it's on another board or you've seen their name doing this or doing that, it definitely helps in some sort.
Well, and the big thing too is I don't want to give the impression just go out there and get on a bunch of boards. No, not at all. You better be willing to put 120% into it, or do not get involved.
Correct.
And I've served on boards for a little while. It may not have been quite the fit. I did what was expected of me. And if that's, if I don't think it's going to contribute, if I can't contribute more to it, and I don't see it really, benefiting our mission, what we're doing, I was like, "Hey, I've served my 3 years or whatever, but give it your best." There's nothing worse than a board and they don't have quorum because somebody said, "Oh, I want to be on the board," and then they don't show up for meetings. I mean, wow, what a sneaky way of getting your name out there without doing any work. So you definitely got to be willing to carry the water for these boards and do a good job. And I, Chaz Malik, I've recruited him for a couple different things, and his thing is 3. He wants to be very involved in 3 things. And so I actually had him recruit him for one thing, and then I recruited him for a second thing. He says, "Well, all right, I'm gonna have to give up one of them." And I'm like, yeah, you give that one up because I see your contribution to this would be even greater. So don't push yourself beyond your limits. I mean, Hunter and I, we're like jumping. I mean, our after work is about as busy as our day work because he's coaching, and like fire department and different things like that, which we're going to get to this one here soon too. So, the Pheasants Forever. But you gotta, if you're going to be involved, do it well. Don't let your fellow board members or crew or other people let you down, because that is one way to really ruin your reputation. Because I know how we feel when we're on a board or something and people miss meetings or don't carry through on things that they've said they were going to do.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it real quick. The youth wrestling and stuff like that. Obviously, I loved wrestling. Did it in high school. Went to college at Up Iowa Wrestling. So coming back, I always wanted to coach and give back to it. And so I kind of got three different roles, I guess, as far as back in the community here. I coach the high school team right now with my dad and Coach Denner, and then also serve on the youth committee or the Cresco Youth Wrestling Board, which I think is utmost important to have at least one or multiple people from the high school or school staff on this board as well, because they're basically the ones who fund a lot of our overnight trips. They fund our workout shirts, so they contribute a lot of money to what we're trying to do, and it gives us kind of a nice avenue to have them in our back pocket and run funds through them and fundraisers and that sort of thing, and not always having to get the school involved sometimes is beneficial. And obviously we run our golf tournament fundraiser, which is something kind of new that we've done the last few years and is a huge hit. People love to golf, they love to get out there, and if you can give them a good reason to spend money to fundraise money, it opens up some pocketbooks pretty quick. And so being able to be a part of that and be present as a high school coach and part of that board is really important. And so tonight we have high school practice from 3 to 5:30, and then we end up turning right around with our youth practice right after. And so, like when you said, if you're going to be there, you need to be present, you need to give 120%. And so basically from 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock, I'll be at the school with wrestling practice. And then kind of another board, which I honestly never thought I'd ever be a part of. I always kind of looked up to it, but is the Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame. And so there's a lot of different Hall of Fames around the area, and different organizations have Hall of Fames and stuff like this. But Cresco is actually the home of the State of Iowa Wrestling Hall of Fame. And so some people kind of get it confused sometimes with the National Hall of Fame, which is out in Canton, Ohio. That's actually the national one. We have the State of Iowa Hall of Fame here in Cresco. And so I serve on the board of that. We don't actually pick who gets inducted in the Hall of Fame. We just basically approve it. And so they have a selection committee of some pretty high stake folks like Jim Miller, Dan Gable, those kind of guys, Jim Gibbons and stuff like that. And so Bill Rhodes. And so they actually recommend who they should induct in the Hall of Fame based on specific criteria and stuff. And then we basically approve or disapprove, and then basically put together the meeting and stuff like that. And so it was actually pretty cool. Last year was the first banquet that I was a part of and helped with and whatnot. And at the end of it, I was kind of just thinking back. I was like, oh yeah, I love being a part of wrestling. I love giving back. And then I kind of thought back. I was like, well, how does this really help with my job back at the district and stuff like that? And it was like 2 seconds later, all of a sudden a guy came up. He was from Des Moines, Iowa. Actually, he was there with one of the inductees. Came up and he was talking to Tom Fye, who they were talking about farming and whatever. And Tom actually recommended him to come talk to me about conservation and wanted to put some waterways in and wanted to know about some programs and stuff like that. And so obviously I wasn't exactly going to put him right into the program down from Des Moines, but I was able to give him some feedback and some help as to how to start off and stuff like that. And so we'll have to, hopefully he comes back to this banquet this coming March, April, and see if it worked out for him and how things roll. So you never know. Even if you're on a board that doesn't necessarily have that direct route with your job, at some point or another, it's going to have some sort of a fringe benefit and come back and give you some sort of a helping factor, some way to propel someone else into where they need to go.
Well, the next group I want to talk about is obviously pretty tight with what we do here, and that's the Pheasants Forever. So my whole involvement with watershed work and my work here at the conservation started with a grant that the Turkey River Pheasants Forever chapter here in Howard County gave to the Soil and Water District to promote CRP and buffer strips. So when they came looking for, recruited me to come work here, that was what I did for the first couple of years, was promoting CRP and buffer strips. So obviously, well, Pheasants Forever, you know, I had heard of them. Hadn't really even got my hand on today. I didn't really understand how the organization worked and stuff. So I thought, well, the banquet was coming up. So I talked to one of the officers at the time, and I said, hey, you know, I'd love to. I mean, you guys are funding me. I would love to come and share what I'm doing and have a booth at your banquet. And they're like, wow, yeah, heck yeah, that'd be awesome. So for the last 21 year, well, this will be 21st year, we'll be having a booth again at the PF, and it's got beyond the booth. I mean, now the chapter, when we have our banquet booklet, we actually put a lot of our stuff that we would have had on a. I don't even think we set our booth up last year because we did solely. The banquet booklet had a lot of the information about the accomplishments of the Soil and Water District and what we've been doing in the county, but to the point where then they asked me to be on the board, so I got on the board right away. Met a lot of great people in the community, but what a perfect way. I mean, their mission and what our mission is part of what we do, is improving wildlife habitat, and obviously they're interested in what the Soil and Water does because they gave us the grant. So I've done that, you know, was on the board, and I think then about 10 years ago, I became the secretary on the board, and then probably a couple years ago, Hunter and I both took officer roles. I'm president of the board now. Hunter's the banquet chairman, and we get to really get really involved in the direction of the board. Hunter does a great job with the youth hunt with that. We do obviously the board, the banquet, and we've got some other fundraising things, and just being out in the community is just another great way. And man, you go to those banquets, and it's so fun to have people come up, especially the landowners. We're always, you know, we're big on pictures, so we always put a lot of pictures in our display booths. And I know we were up at the Chester Pheasants Upper Iowa chapter, and we had our booth up there, and man, you know, there's some local guys there that do a lot of conservation, so I'm always make sure that I've got some pictures of some of their practices and different things, and they go right over there. I see them looking through the pictures, and they find it, and then they're like pointing at their grandkids and stuff. Come up and look at what I got a picture of our stuff here. But what a great organization, you know. And there's probably close to 20 plus individuals that are on that board. So we also get to share what we're doing. The other nice thing what our chapter does, and being that they know what we do, is they've partnered with us for our internship. So the Idols, every year you get an opportunity to have an intern, and we've taken advantage of having those here in Howard County, just because we know we've got a lot of workload, and it's a great experience for them. So what that all entails is 75% of the salary of the summer intern, which is about 480 hours, I think, or 450 hours during the summer, about the time they get out of college and then before they have to go back. And then the Pheasants Forever chapter picks up the remaining 25%. So it doesn't cost our district a penny to have an intern. So not only are we getting a great amount of work out of them, they're getting a great learning experience from us. So there's definitely an organization. If you're a watershed coordinator, get involved in your habitat groups, whether it's Trout Unlimited, whitetail, quail. There's quail groups out there. There's turkeys, but definitely Pheasants Forever is probably one of the larger ones in the state. And there's definitely a chapter. If it's not in your county, it's going to be pretty dang close to it. And they have their boundaries are definitely going to be, your watershed is going to land in at least one, if not two. Like I said, we have two chapters here in Howard County. We're more involved in the Turkey one just because we live over this way. But when my first watershed project, Staff and Beaver Creek, was primarily the Upper Iowa River. Well, actually, I still am in the Upper Iowa Silver Creek, but we're on the east side of the county. But anyway, that the same too. I've had display booths up there Also DU. We had a DU chapter for a while up there. So anyway, so that's my connection with PF. And I know when Hunter got on board, I was like, hey, and Steve Slefka, who is a relative of Hunter's, a tremendous inspiration to be and great supporter and encourager of what we're our mission here. He was a big part of that board for many years. He unfortunately passed away last year, but I know he was dang proud to have Hunter get on that board too, and all the work he was doing here in Howard County for Habitat in our own community.
Yeah, and I mean, you hate to always get caught up on the dollars and things like that, but they're truly a great fiscal agent for promoting habitat, promoting an internship here, and then stimulating our economy. I mean, if you guys have come to our banquet, obviously you know how many guns we have there, all the merchandise we have there. I know sometimes we get some grief because we have such a large general raffle sometimes, but
Yeah, I had to wait too long to win my prize. It's like,
yeah.
really? It's like we got a lot of prizes, so sit
So
back
I mean,
and wait for your prize to arrive.
we've done a really good job on the Pheasants Forever committee to make sure that we prioritize and spend as much money locally. And this coming year, we're really excited. We've been trying to get some advertising and talk to other folks out there about what we got coming because I believe this is truly going to be probably our best banquet that we've ever had. I mean, we're going to have the most guns that we've ever had. Pretty much, I'm going to say 98% of everything we've bought is local. There's only a few things that we had to get yet outsourced through Shields and whatever as far as prints, just to kind of have that checkbox to have all the print of the years and guns of the years and whatnot. But I mean, I'm not going to say any dollar amounts, but it's definitely a good chunk of change that we spend here locally. All the money we raise, we keep locally, other than our membership, which gets sent back to the national. But then we're able to turn around, use that money to buy more properties, do more habitat projects, help the county conservation board out with whatever it may be, give scholarships out. I mean, we've thrown the idea of trying to help out as much. Well, we basically bought a trailer for the Clay Crusher team, which has since completely taken off their shooting sports. They got 50, 60, almost 70 kids out in each given year, and it's growing every single year since. And so, being able to help support that and then fund those guys and keep people moving just like they do for us, I'm sure when we got going from the beginning.
Well,
Goes a
especially
long
during the
ways.
banquet, that's when a lot of help is needed to set up, running the games and stuff. And I know, well, Jeff Stevens, who is also works here at NRCS, he's on the board now. He's a secretary. Our interns are always come back and help with either running a game or obviously running our booth and things like that. We even had Ben Kennan, who is our NRCS wetland specialist. He was there helping sell card game decks of cards and participate. So it's kind of fun. I've been to the PF banquet in Decorah, and you go over there, and it's same as here. You see the whole NRCS office staff are all wearing the PF logos and out there really getting to work on it. And honestly, what another avenue to reach people because we've got with what Hunter and I are doing. We're obviously we're working with farmers is tremendous. We've got farmers who also hunt, but we also have hunters. And I've always told people at these PF banquets that, hey, if you're hunting on this land of these owners, tell them thank you for having that conservation cover out there and working with Hunter and Neil. And and that's part. It all ties in together. I've always said one hand washes the other. It's a symbiotic relationship, and this one was a very close one where we're actually helping with an organization that is reaping the benefits of what we're doing here. So it's very rewarding. I know we do we don't every month, but we try to at least 2 or 3 times a year update the Pheasants Forever board on what our accomplishments are here and what we've been doing. So yeah, definitely Pheasants Forever is a big one.
Yeah, and it's extremely important. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of people there that are present at the banquet, and then all the outreach and different things like that. And so, obviously, we've talked a lot about getting involved in the community. There's a lot of different avenues you can go down. Whatever maybe your expertise is, maybe it is the habitat, maybe it is the farming aspect of Farm Bureau, maybe it's just a local JC's group or whatever it may be, or Kiwanis group. I mean, there's tons of different boards, volunteer groups that you can be a part of. Some more important than the other, but in your own mind, they all mean a lot. And so,
Well, and like I can't stress enough that they are looking for helpers and people because they're honestly some of the like the prairie Springs Trail Committee. We've been on that now for, well, I've been on it for quite a few years. Hunter started coming to the meetings, but it runs right through his watershed project. And they get tremendous grants. They help the local county conservation board get, I think it was like $1.5 million. It was a lot of money. I mean, and they're looking for people to help guide where's their next place, where are they gonna, what's the focus gonna be for their group. So you can actually play a pretty pivotal role in helping guide some of this, what's going on, just by being there. One time I was at a conference and they said the world is run by those who decide to show up. Wow, I mean, what a powerful statement, and that stuck with me. I mean, you go to a lot of these conferences and some stuff doesn't really stick with you, but I remember that as clear as day, and I'm like, wow, it's just like a light bulb came on. So yeah, you're getting a lot of involvement. I mean, we can list some of the other ones we're on. I mean, the Norman Borlaug Heritage Foundation, that one took a while. Maury Kramer, he was lobbying me for about 3-4 years, and I finally relented and got on that board, and I've been on there for about 5 years now, and I think I got a new title with it. I'm actually on the board with Hunter's father-in-law now, Chad, and so we're kind of like property overseers, project managers, honestly, what it is. So like when we do different projects, we go out and get bids and meet with the contractors and bring that information back to the board. And I know this last month we got a lot of activities going on out there, so I was getting bids for about 3 different things, and one of the guys kind of leaned over and says, "When do you have time to do all this?" And I was like, you kind of figure it out. So that one's kind of an important one. But gosh, you just think over the years, I mean, there's a lot of different commissions I've been appointed to. I mean, high and low. I remember Governor Vilsack, who is now the Secretary of Agriculture, asked me to serve on a Rural Healthcare Advisory Committee. And this was back in probably the early 90s. And we met like 4 times a year for 2 years. I was on that. And, gosh, we were like talking about how do you attract doctors to your rural communities. I mean, so there's all different things. And, gosh, you're like, well, what do I have to offer on that? And honestly, I think they liked hearing from me most of all because we had a small rural community hospital and we had 5 to 7 doctors on hand all the time. So that was kind of an interesting one. But we can't stress enough, get involved. It's going to be really rewarding. Do we get stressed out a little bit because we got 4 meetings this week and we're not going to be able to get home and relax like we'd like to. But and the friendships I made, I've got friends that I've made. I remember going to my first young farmer conference in Des Moines, and someone that I really admired, and we've probably just sat and talked for a couple hours that one night, was Steve Berger. He's from Washington County. Washington County, if in the world of conservation, this is the county that Howard County is trying to emulate, and we're getting closer. But whatever they're doing down there, and I've been there to see it. But Steve Berger, he's a leader in that community to get people to accept no-till and cover crop. And I mean, they are just a beacon for conservation. But that was someone that I met, 20 years ago, and I run into him every once in a while at a conference. And those are some of the neat things too. The people you meet, the what you're going to hear at some of this stuff, and just the greater appreciation of what other boards and commissions and there's different stuff at the courthouse I'm involved with and different committees and things, just to understand how your community works. I mean, you're getting to see the inside, you're getting to see the engine room, and I think that's pretty important. And what it does for you is you're getting out there, they're seeing you visible in the community, and it's going to create trust. That's huge. That's what we're always talking about, is building trust with your clients and your cooperators. And what a better way to develop trust than to show your volunteering, because that was something last night. I was at a board meeting, and those that were presenting, they, every one of them thanked us for volunteering. I'm like, thank God. I mean, you're the ones that do all the heavy lifting. We're just here helping make some decisions with you. So anyway, it's a tremendous deal. Get involved. But if you do get involved, like we said, give it 120%. And if it's just one committee, Pheasants Forever is pretty dang nice, and I think they're going to very much appreciate, because you're going to bring them a lot of information. I know when we go to our board meeting, especially if some new stuff comes out about habitat. We always definitely make mention of that, whether we're talking about it on our opportunity when we have our gun calendar drawing. We talk about different topics and stuff. We do that live on Facebook. It's just going to give you that many more avenues for outreach and communication and participation within your community.
Yeah, and I mean, you never know who you're going to influence either. I mean, a couple of the different groups I'm a part of, I can think of like the youth wrestling board. I mean, when you get those high school kids in there, or the coaches present at the practices, those kids' eyes just light up. And I mean, every word you say, they're just grasping on the edge of it, and they're ready to eat it all up and absorb it all. I mean, you never know who you maybe are talking to that you're going to influence. I can remember when we were at the water conference down in Dubuque. I was just having a couple conversations or whatever, and over drinks and whatever. And that next day, I'd received the award, and as I was walking away, this gal came up. Joy was her name. She's a project coordinator from Southwest Iowa. Came up and said, "Hey, I really appreciate what you told me last night. It gave me a lot of confidence." And I mean, you don't even really remember what you said. I mean, it's just normal conversation, you think, but you truly never know who you're going to influence or when you're going to make that difference. And so, being a part of those boards, speaking up when you have the right knowledge, being involved. I mean, you never know when you're going to make that 1% difference that maybe goes a long ways. And so, that's what we try to do here at the office is trying to translate it. And sometimes when you're a part of a few more things and get involved, it gives you a little more clout sometimes, and it gives you
Well, it also gives you that confidence where you can go out and speak and be that influencer.
absolutely.
The leadership and the communication skills and the ability to share what you're doing. I mean, obviously, we're doing it right here on this podcast, sharing what we're doing. And it's not to brag about what we're doing, it's to say, hey, there's a lot of great opportunity for you to be part of your community. There was that book came out many years ago. It takes a village. I mean, obviously, it takes a lot of people to make things work, and whether it's government or conservation or the PTA or Kiwanis, all that kind of stuff. They add so much to our community and how enjoyable your community is. And if you want to be part of that, and you want people to really gain some respect with your peers within your community, I mean, that's definitely something you got to step up and do. And I've always encouraged people to get involved. And I think with a lot of new people, I mean, what Hunter and I do as project coordinators is probably one of the biggest job turnovers in conservation, just because of the some of the uncertainties with it, with being funded by grants and things like that, that we'll talk about that in the podcast too, because you shouldn't be afraid of that either. But anyway, for new people, and especially, I mean, Hunter and I are so fortunate. We work in our home community. So it's pretty easy for us to get on a lot of these boards. Honestly, we get asked to be on a lot more stuff, and I'm getting better at saying no. I'm not very good at it, but I have been able to, because honestly, when you're involved in something, you say, "Hey, I'm involved in this," so it's an easy out for you if you have a hard time saying no. But yeah, it's just great to be part of a lot of what's going on in your community, and you can really feel proud about it. And influence them, and like I said, gain that respect from your peers throughout the community, and it'll take you a long way. And obviously, we're gaining every time we get involved in a board. I mean, like I said, every time I go somewhere, go to a board meeting, of course it's going to turn to what are you doing at the office? What's the latest program? What's going on? And it's just raising your visibility. And so, like I said, there's probably more people know who we are than we can possibly know. We know a lot of people, but there's still a lot of people that are watching what we're doing, and that's very good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it goes a long ways. And lastly, I mean, we talked about getting involved, giving your input, but I think sometimes the most important things is sometimes you just need to sit back and use your 2 ears and listen and try to learn as much as you can. And I'm a true believer. That's why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk. And so being on these different boards gives you that avenue to learn different things, or learn different outreach efforts, or different ways to do things. And so The more you can get involved, the more you can get yourself out there, the more you can talk to other folks, hopefully gain some confidence and gain some knowledge, and then take it on to that next spot or back to your job place or whatever it may be. And so don't ever be scared to get involved and put yourself out there, because that's how you get better, and that's how you propel yourself down the road of success. So hopefully this gave them a little bit of confidence to get out there, and don't just be complacent and go to your 8 to 4:30 job or whatever it may be, and go right home and watch Netflix or whatever you guys do. Get out there, get involved, go meet people, especially if you're not from the community. That's so important to get yourself out there, because if they don't see you or they don't know who you are and they just see you in the office, it's probably not going to go as well as if they see you out there in different organizations helping out, volunteering, that sort of thing. So
It's not always a financial reward. Obviously, we're not getting paid to do these things, but when they sponsor you to go to Washington D.C., I mean, Hunter and I have been to the Capitol, we've been to the White House, we've been to the Supreme Court, we've got to see a lot of that stuff. Or one of the last things that Hunter and I were involved with Farm Bureau is we helped Spiff Slifka do a mural tribute to Norman Borlaug on one of the buildings downtown. So every time you drive past that, now I'm like thinking, wow, I remember when we met with the artists that did that and things like that. And what it took is people volunteered to be part of that. So it's not always a financial reward, but there's many other rewards in life than in dollars.
absolutely. Well, I think we're going to sign off here. We challenge you to get out there, go be a part of a new board, or go get yourself involved in some sort of community effort. May not have to be a board. Maybe they have some sort of an effort where they're trying to raise some money for something, whatever it is. But I challenge you to get out there, do something outside your comfort zone, and try to propel yourself down that road to success. So thanks for listening. Another episode of Beyond the Dirt.